The champagne bottle slipped from my trembling fingers, shattering across the marble floor in a dazzling array of glass and golden liquid. But nobody noticed. They were all too engrossed in laughing at me. "Clean it up," my husband commanded, his voice as cold as winter steel. The woman, perched on his lap, his mistress, giggled softly against his neck, her perfectly manicured nails tracing delicate circles on his chest. My chest tightened painfully, making it hard to breathe. This was meant to be his birthday celebration, our home, our life together. Yet here I was, the servant, while she reigned as the queen. I sank to my knees, my hands trembling, as I gathered the jagged shards. That's when I felt it, the warm trickle of blood cascading down my palm. I watched it drip onto the pristine marble, spreading like a crimson flower, and something deep within me cracked wide open. Not my heart, which had shattered long ago, but something deeper, something that had been dormant, waiting patiently, gathering strength in the shadows of my suffering. When I dared to look up, I found him watching me with those vacant eyes, the same eyes that once promised me forever, the same mouth that had whispered "I love you" on our wedding day, now twisted into a sneer. "You're pathetic," he said. In that moment, I couldn't help but smile, for he had no inkling of what was coming. He was blissfully unaware that the broken woman kneeling before him had already devised his downfall. Piece by piece, moment by moment. He had no idea that in precisely 3 seconds, his entire world would begin to unravel. The grandfather clock in the hallway began to chime. His phone buzzed on the table. 2. He reached for it, his face still smug with victory. 3. And then he saw the message. His face turned as pale as death itself. Before we proceed, please share in the comments which country you are watching this video from. We love to know where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first visit to our channel, please subscribe. Your support enables us to bring even more epic tales of revenge in life. You're listening. The first time I discovered her earring nestled in our bed, I convinced myself it was mine. Even though I had never owned pearl studs that luxurious, and despite the perfume lingering on our sheets smelling of jasmine when I always wore vanilla, I was adept at deceiving myself back then. It was far easier than confronting the harsh reality. My name is Elena, and 6 months ago, I was the perfect wife. I rose at 5 every morning to prepare breakfast. I maintained our home in pristine condition. I smiled at every business dinner, laughed at every dreadful joke his colleagues shared, and never uttered a complaint when he stumbled home at 3 a.m. reeking of whiskey and someone else's perfume. I believed that if I tried harder, loved him more deeply, he would return to me. I was such a fool. The morning everything shifted began like any other. I was crafting his favorite omelet when he entered the kitchen, adjusting his tie. He looked handsome in his gray suit, the one I had chosen for his promotion the previous year, back when he still sought my opinion, back when I still mattered. "I need you to plan something special for my birthday," he stated, not bothering to look at me. "Something impressive. The partners from the firm will be there." "Of course," I replied, flipping the omelet flawlessly. "I was thinking we could, and Victoria will be helping you coordinate." The spatula slipped from my hand, clattering against the pan. Victoria, my assistant? He still wouldn't look at me. She has impeccable taste. Victoria, the name felt like poison on my tongue. The 23-year-old assistant with legs that seemed to stretch on forever and a laugh that chimed like silver bells. The one whose calls he always answered, no matter the time, even during dinner, even on our anniversary. I couldn't bear it. He slammed his hand down on the counter, making me jump. "I don't care what you think, Elena. Just do it." The omelet burned as he stormed out. I stood there, staring at the smoking pan, feeling something shift within my chest, a tiny crack in the fortress of my denial. That afternoon, Victoria arrived at our house. She walked through my front door as if she owned the place, her heels clicking against the floors with the confidence of someone who held secrets I was too terrified to uncover. "Elena," she purred, air-kissing my cheeks, "this place is so quaint." Quaint? Our $4 million home was quaint? She sauntered through the rooms, her perfectly manicured fingers brushing against my belongings, leaving invisible traces everywhere she touched. When she reached our bedroom, she paused at the doorway and smiled. "I love what you've done with the master suite," she remarked, "though I would have opted for darker sheets. White shows everything, doesn't it?" My hands clenched into fists. He knew. She knew that I knew, and she was relishing it. "Let's discuss the party," I said, my voice steady despite the tempest raging inside me. We settled in my living room, and she pulled out her tablet, discussing catering, flowers, and guest lists. Yet her gaze kept drifting to the family photos on the mantel. Our wedding picture, our honeymoon in Greece, the lie we were still pretending to live, she said, crossing her legs slowly, deliberately. "Something nobody will forget." Yes, I agreed, my mouth dry. Something unforgettable. She departed an hour later, but her perfume lingered in the air. Jasmine, the same scent that had been haunting my bed for months. I walked to the kitchen and retrieved the bottle of wine I had been saving for our anniversary, the anniversary he had forgotten 3 weeks ago. I poured a glass and sat at the counter, staring into space, lost in thought. That's when I noticed it. Her phone. She had left it on my coffee table. My hand trembled as I reached for it. I should just call her, tell her she forgot it, be the good wife, the obedient wife, the pathetic wife. But I was so exhausted from being good. The phone wasn't locked. How careless of her. Or perhaps she wanted me to see. Maybe this was yet another form of torture, another twist of the knife she had already buried in my back. I opened her messages. The first thread was with him, my husband, the man who had sworn before God and our families to forsake all others. The messages stretched back 8 months, 2 months before I discovered the first earring. I scrolled through their conversation, each word slicing deeper than the last. The pet names, the photos, the plans they made while I was at home, cooking his dinners, washing his clothes, and slowly dying inside. But it was the most recent message that truly stopped my heart. "After my birthday, we'll tell her. I want the divorce papers ready. The prenup has a loophole if she's been mentally unstable." We just need to push her a little more. The medication I've been slipping into her coffee is working. She's been so confused lately. Perfect for our case. I can't wait to make you my wife officially. Mrs. Blackwood has a nice ring to it. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. They weren't just having an affair. They were systematically dismantling me. The forgotten appointments, the misplaced keys, the disorientation I had been feeling. It wasn't early menopause like I had feared. They were drugging me. They were trying to make me seem insane. And then they planned to take everything. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at her phone, feeling the rage swell within me like a symphony reaching its crescendo. They thought I was weak. They believed I was broken. They assumed I would crumble quietly and vanish. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I picked up the phone and forwarded the entire conversation to my email. Then I deleted the evidence and returned the phone to the exact spot where she had left it. When Victoria came back for her phone an hour later, I was the epitome of the perfect hostess. "Oh, silly me," she laughed, snatching it up. "I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached. We all make mistakes." "Some bigger than others," I replied, smiling warmly. She paused at the door, perhaps sensing something in my tone, but then she shrugged it off and left, her heels clicking away like a countdown timer. I had 6 weeks until his birthday, 6 weeks to orchestrate the perfect party, 6 weeks to destroy them both. The next morning, I stopped putting sugar in my coffee. It was a small change, but I needed my mind clear. No more of whatever they had been feeding me. I poured the entire bag of sugar down the sink and purchased a new one from a different store. I did the same with everything else I consumed regularly. Paranoid, perhaps, but paranoia had become my survival instinct. I began documenting everything, every strange taste, every moment of confusion, every unexplained absence. I secured a safety deposit box at a bank across town, one he didn't know about, and started constructing my insurance policy. Meanwhile, I played my part flawlessly. "Honey, I've been so forgetful lately," I told him that evening, letting my voice tremble with feigned concern. His eyes lit up. "That's a good idea, sweetheart. I'll make you an appointment with Dr. Brennan." Dr. Brennan, his golf buddy, of course. "You're so thoughtful," I cooed, kissing his cheek while my stomach churned with anxiety. I attended the appointment, acting confused and scattered. I allowed Dr. Brennan to run his tests and prescribe me anxiety medication that I never intended to fill. Instead, I paid cash at a different pharmacy for vitamins that looked identical to the pills and switched them out. Let them think they were controlling me. The birthday party planning continued. Victoria came by twice a week, each visit more unbearable than the last. She would drape herself over my furniture, discussing my husband's preferences as if she knew him better than I did. He probably did at this point. "He loves chocolate cake," she said one afternoon, flipping through cake samples. "He's allergic to chocolate," I corrected quietly. "It gives him hives." She laughed. "Oh, Elena, he's not allergic. He just told you that because he didn't want you making those terrible brownies anymore." My brownies? The ones I had baked every Sunday during the first year of our marriage. The ones he had claimed to love until suddenly he was allergic. Another lie. Another act of cruelty. "How silly of me," I said. "Chocolate it is." Meanwhile, while they plotted my downfall, I was constructing something entirely different. I had found a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but Miranda Thorne, the woman who had taken down 3 Fortune 500 companies in divorce court. She was expensive, ruthless, and precisely what I needed. "They're trying to gaslight you," she said. "Classic manipulation. But you're smarter than they think." "I want more than just a divorce," I told her firmly. Her smile was sharp as a blade. "Then we need more evidence, and we need to make his birthday very special indeed." I also hired a private investigator. Thomas was a former cop who resembled someone's grandfather, but had eyes that missed nothing. "Your husband's been sloppy," he informed me after a week. "The affair's been going on for over a year. But that's not the interesting part." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, documents, proof of something far worse than adultery. My husband had been embezzling from his company, using Victoria to help funnel money through fake accounts. They weren't just stealing from me, they were robbing his partners, his clients, everyone who had placed their trust in him. I stared at the numbers. The trail of deception was enough to put him away for 20 years, Thomas concluded. "If you want to use it." I closed the folder, my decision already made. Not yet, but soon. The weeks passed in a blur of false smiles and clandestine meetings. I played the role of the deteriorating wife flawlessly, mixing up dates, forgetting important events, crying at random moments. I let them see me taking the pills they believed were controlling me. One day, I overheard Victoria on the phone laughing about how easy it was. "She's practically doing the work for us," she said. "By his birthday, she'll be ready for a psychiatric hold." 3 weeks before the party, I made my first real move. I went to see Jaden Blackwood Sr., my father-in-law. He had never liked me and had fought against our marriage from the very beginning. I wasn't from money, not from their world, but he was a man who valued one thing above all else. "I need to show you something," I said, sitting in his office, which smelled of leather and old cigars. I laid everything out for him. The affair, the embezzlement, the plan to have me committed. I watched as his expression shifted from skepticism to fury, then to something far beyond rage. "That stupid boy," he growled, his hands trembling. "That absolute fool. He's going to destroy everything you've built," I said quietly, "unless we stop him." The old man looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in 7 years. "What do you want?" "I want him to lose everything. I want him to feel what it's like to be humiliated, destroyed, thrown away like garbage." I met his gaze steadily, "and I want your help to do it." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You're not the mouse he thinks you are you?" "I never was. I just loved him enough to pretend." He nodded slowly. "The party. You want to do it at the party, in front of everyone who matters to him, his colleagues, his friends, his mistress." A smile spread across his weathered face, but it wasn't a kind smile. "I've been waiting 7 years to see some backbone in you, girl. Tell me what you need." The plan came together piece by piece. Jaden Senior had connections I could never have imagined. An FBI agent who owed him a favor, the judge who would be attending the party, and reporters who would kill for this story. I continued to play my part, appearing weaker and more confused. I allowed Victoria to see me crying in the bathroom. I let my husband find me staring blankly into space, mumbling about feeling lost. They believed they were winning. 1 week before the party, Victoria made her boldest move yet. She kissed him in our kitchen while I was upstairs, unaware of the cameras I had installed. He didn't know I was watching on my phone, recording everything. I watched my husband, the man I had loved with all my heart, pull her against him as he once did with me. I watched them laugh about my deterioration, plotting their future in my house with my money built on the ashes of my life. "After the party, we'll have her committed for 72 hours. That's all we need to get power of attorney," he said. "And then we're free," she sighed against his mouth. "Then we're free," he agreed. I saved the video to 3 different cloud services and sent a copy to my lawyer. Then I descended the stairs, my face carefully blank. "Oh, I acted surprised. Victoria, I didn't know you were here." They jumped apart, but not quickly enough to appear innocent. "Just going over final party details," my husband said smoothly. "Wonderful," I replied, smiling vacantly. "I've been so scattered. I'm sure I would have ruined everything without you both." They exchanged a knowing look. The mouse was still in the trap. 3 days before the party, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to see my mother. She lived in a small apartment downtown, nothing like the mansion I had grown accustomed to, but it was warm, real, and safe. "You look terrible," she said bluntly, pulling me into her arms. "It's almost over," I whispered into her shoulder. She held me as I cried, really cried, for the first time in months. I wept for the woman I had been, the marriage I had lost, and a future that would never be. I cried until all that remained was a fierce resolve. "What are you planning?" she asked, making tea with steady hands. "Justice," I replied. "Or revenge. I'm not sure there's a difference anymore." "Be careful," she warned. "Revenge has a way of consuming the person who seeks it." "I'm already consumed, Mom. I'm already destroyed. The only question is whether I go down alone or take them with me." She studied my face, then nodded. "Then make it count. Make it so devastating they never recover." The day before the party, everything was in place. The caterers were hired, not Victoria's choice, but mine through a shell company. The guest list was confirmed, including some unexpected special additions. The champagne was chilled, the cake was ordered, chocolate, of course, and the entertainment was arranged. That night, my husband came home late, as usual. But instead of pretending to be asleep, I waited in the living room. "Alina, why are you up?" he asked. I replied, my voice small and uncertain. "I've been feeling so strange lately." He sat beside me, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of the man I had married, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "Tomorrow's a big day," he said carefully. Maybe you should take an extra pill and get some rest. You're right, I agreed, standing up. I want everything to be perfect for you. He caught my hand as I passed. Elena, after tomorrow, things are going to change. I know, I replied softly. Everything's going to change. He had no idea how right I was. On the morning of his birthday, I woke at 4 a.m., not to make breakfast, not to clean, but to prepare for war. I stood in the shower, letting scalding water wash over me, steeling myself for what lay ahead. Today, I would either reclaim my life or lose everything. There was no middle ground left. I dressed with care, not in the dowdy outfit Victoria had suggested, but in the red dress my husband had once said made me look like a goddess. I applied my makeup perfectly and styled my hair the way I used to when we were dating. If I was going to destroy him, I would look magnificent doing it. You look nice, he said, though his tone was laced with suspicion. Feeling better? It's your special day, I replied, kissing his cheek. I wanted to make an effort. He relaxed. The mouse was still playing her part. Victoria arrived at 2 p.m., 3 hours before the party. She walked in wearing a white dress, white like a bride, and my husband's eyes devoured her. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Elena, she said, looking me up and down, that's an interesting choice. You don't like it? I asked innocently. It's just very attention-seeking. Today is about Jonathan, not you. She used his first name, as if she had the right, like she truly belonged here. You're absolutely right, I said, feigning innocence. How thoughtless of me. I should change. No, my husband interrupted. You look fine, Victoria. Why don't you help with the final arrangements? She basked in his attention, brushing past me to the dining room. Her shoulder deliberately knocked against mine, a dismissive gesture, as if to signal that the help should move aside. I smiled. The caterers arrived at 3, the ones I had hired, not Victoria's. She didn't notice the switch. She was too busy playing hostess in my home. They set up the champagne fountain, arranged the hors d'oeuvres, and placed everything exactly where I had instructed. The cake, Victoria announced, should be the centerpiece. Of course, the chocolate cake was massive, 3 tiers of dark decadence. She bragged that she had it specially made from the best bakery in the city, costing $3,000, charged to my credit card, naturally. The guests began arriving at 5. First came his colleagues from the firm. They greeted me politely, but their eyes were drawn to Victoria. They all knew, everyone knew, except the fool who was supposed to know. Then came the special guests. Miranda Thorne, my lawyer, dressed like any other party attendee. Thomas, my private investigator, posing as a potential client. And 3 FBI agents mingling casually. Jaden Blackwood, Sr., whose presence made my husband go rigid. Dad, I didn't think you were coming, he stammered. Wouldn't miss my only son's birthday, the old man replied, his smile sharp. Elena invited me personally. My husband looked at me, confused. I was supposed to be too scattered to remember invitations. Did I forget to tell you? I asked, eyes wide. I've been so forgetful lately. More guests arrived. The senior partners from the firm, the most significant clients, and the society reporters he was always eager to impress. All the people who mattered in his carefully constructed world. And they all saw Victoria playing the role of hostess, directing the servants, wearing white in another woman's house, acting as if she were the lady of the manor, while the actual wife appeared lost and confused. Poor Elena, I heard someone whisper. She looks so fragile. I heard she's been having episodes. Another replied, mental health issues. No wonder he's found comfort elsewhere. The narrative they had crafted was working perfectly, except now it was my narrative, my stage, my show. At 7 p.m., dinner was served. Victoria had arranged the seating, placing herself at my husband's right hand, while I was relegated to the far end of the table. Another small humiliation, another twist of the knife. I sat quietly, picking at my food, playing the broken woman they expected to see. I watched them laugh, watched her feed him bites of her dessert, watched him whisper in her ear. The other guests pretended not to notice, but everyone saw. Everyone was witnessing my humiliation. Perfect. At 8:30, the champagne fountain was unveiled and the cake was brought out. The room filled with golden light and false celebration. "Speech," someone called out. "Birthday speech." My husband stood, champagne glass in hand, with Victoria gazing up at him adoringly. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice smooth and confident. "This year has been one of transformation, of discovering what really matters." His eyes found Victoria. Several people shifted uncomfortably. "Change is never easy," he continued. "Sometimes we have to make hard choices. Sometimes we have to leave the past behind to embrace the future." He was really going to do it. He was going to humiliate me publicly at his own birthday party in my own home. But before we toast to the future, I stood up suddenly. "Perhaps we should honor the past." Everyone turned to look at me. My husband's face flickered with annoyance. "Elena, maybe you should—" "I have a birthday gift for you," I interrupted, my voice clear and strong. "Something special. Something unforgettable." I pulled out my phone. "Would everyone like to see?" The guests murmured their approval. My husband looked uncertain, but Victoria whispered something in his ear, and he nodded. I connected my phone to the smart TV, and the screen flickered to life. At first, it was exactly what they expected. Our wedding video, our honeymoon, sweet moments from better days. The guests smiled, some even sighed at the romance of it all. Then the scene changed. Security footage from my bedroom appeared, Victoria going through my jewelry, taking pieces, trying them on. The room fell silent. The next clip showed my husband and Victoria in his office. The audio was crystal clear. "She's so pathetic," Victoria's voice rang out. "Does she really not know?" "She knows what I want her to know. Once we have her committed, everything will be mine. Then we can finally stop pretending." Gasps echoed through the room. The video continued. The kitchen kiss, the drugging confession, the embezzlement documents, account after account, transfer after transfer. There were signatures on everything. "Turn it off," my husband roared, lunging for my phone. But I stepped back, and Thomas stepped forward, blocking him. "There's more," I said. The screen displayed emails between them, planning my commitment, discussing which facility would be easiest to control, calculating how long it would take before they could declare me incompetent. Then came the FBI evidence, fraudulent accounts, stolen funds, and the clients they had cheated. Victoria had gone pale as death, standing there trembling, trying to leave, but Miranda Thorne blocked the door, shaking her head. "You might want to stay," my lawyer said. "The FBI will have questions." As if on cue, the 3 agents stood up, displaying their badges. "Jonathan Blackwood, Victoria Clean, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy." The room erupted into chaos. My husband turned to me, his face contorted with rage. You crazy?" "Careful," I softly. "Everyone's watching." He glanced around at the phone's recording, the reporter scribbling notes, and his father's disgusted expression. "This is entrapment. She's insane. Tell them." He grabbed Victoria's arm. "Tell them she's crazy." But Victoria was already being handcuffed, mascara streaming down her face. "This is all his idea," she screamed. "He made me do it. He said she was unstable, that she deserved it." They turned on each other instantly, the great love affair crumbling in seconds when faced with the consequences. "You seduced me," he shouted. "You said we could have everything. You promised me marriage. You promised me her life." The agents dragged them apart, reading their rights while everyone watched. The birthday cake sat untouched, its chocolate perfection mocking the destruction surrounding it. But I wasn't done. "One more thing," I called out. as they were led away. My husband turned, hope flickering in his eyes. Maybe his mouse would save him after all. I smiled, the same smile I had given him on our wedding day. "Happy birthday, darling. I'm pregnant." The words struck him like a physical blow. He stumbled, his face cycling through shock, rage, and desperation. "That's impossible. We haven't." 3 months ago, I said clearly, ensuring everyone could hear. "The night you came home drunk, crying about a deal that fell through. You don't remember, do you? You said you loved me, you said you were sorry, you said you wanted to try again. It was all a lie. We hadn't touched in 6 months, but the test in my hand is real. I bought it that morning, fully aware of what 2 lines would look like, knowing exactly what people would assume." I continued, my hand resting on my still flat stomach. "The stress of your betrayal almost made me lose the baby. But don't worry, your child will know exactly who their father is. Everyone will." The last thing I saw before they dragged him out was his face. The moment he realized that even from prison, he would be tied to me forever. The woman he tried to destroy would be raising his heir. The fortune he had sacrificed his soul for would go to a child who would grow up knowing precisely what kind of man their father was. The door slammed shut and the room stood frozen. Then Jaden Sr. began to clap, slowly, deliberately. "Well played," he said, raising his glass to me. "Welcome to the family." Finally, the grandfather clock finished chiming. The party guests remained frozen, champagne glasses suspended mid-air, as if time itself had stopped to process what had just unfolded. 3 seconds, that's all it took for him to read the message I had arranged to be sent at that exact moment. A photo of the FBI warrant with the simple text, "Happy birthday. Check your accounts." Everything was gone. I had spent 3 months meticulously draining our joint accounts, transferring money through a complex maze designed by my forensic accountant, whom I had hired in secret. Every penny he had stolen, every asset he had hidden, now all of it was entangled in legal proceedings that would take years to unravel. His precious fortune, the very thing he valued more than our marriage, more than my sanity, more than his own soul, was gone. But the true beauty lay in the details he would discover later. The house was in my mother's name, transferred months ago through a loophole he had never noticed, because he had never bothered to read our marriage documents. Too confident, too careless. His car had been reported stolen that morning by me, the rightful owner, since it was purchased with my inheritance. By the time the FBI was through with him, his office would be sealed. Every single thing he thought he owned, controlled, or could use to rebuild, I'd already taken it from him. The party guests began to whisper, then talk, and soon frantically called their lawyers. Several business partners were already distancing themselves, giving statements to reporters about how they had always suspected something was amiss. The chocolate cake remained untouched, a $3,000 monument to arrogance. I walked over, picked up the knife, and cut myself a piece. "Elena," someone ventured, a colleague's wife who had always been kind to me, "are you really pregnant?" I took a bite of the cake. It was actually delicious. "No," I admitted, loudly enough for the remaining guests to hear. "But he'll never know that for sure. He'll spend every day in prison wondering if there's a child out there. His child, growing up without him. It will eat him alive." The woman stared at me, then slowly smiled. "Remind me never to cross you. You'd never drug me and try to have me committed," I replied simply. "So we'll never have a problem." As the party dissolved and gossip spread like wildfire through their social circles, while his reputation crumbled in real time on social media, I stood in my dining room, savoring chocolate cake. Just then, Miranda Thorne appeared at my elbow. "The divorce papers will be filed Monday. Given the circumstances, it should be quick." "No," I said, surprising him. "No, no divorce. Let him rot in prison as my husband. Let him understand that legally, I control everything while he's incarcerated. Medical decisions, asset management, everything. He wanted me as his prisoner. Now he gets to be mine. He grinned. You're scarier than I thought. I like it. Thomas joined us, loosening his tie. The FBI has everything they need. With the evidence you provided, he's looking at 15 to 20 years. Victoria might get 5 to 10 if she cooperates. She will, I said confidently. She's a survivor, like me, except she chose the wrong side. The house gradually emptied until it was just me and Jaden Sr. We sat amidst the wreckage of the party, drinking champagne that cost more than most people's rent. You know, he said finally, I never liked you because I thought you were weak, too soft for our world. And now I realize my son was the weak one. He raised his glass. You're a Blackwood through and through. God help us all. He left, and I was alone. I walked through my house truly mine now, feeling the silence wrap around me like silk. No more walking on eggshells, no more lies, no more fear. In the kitchen, I discovered the bottle of pills they had been giving me. I had kept them all, evidence of their crime, but now I no longer needed them. I poured them down the sink, watching them vanish like the last 3 years of my life. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You stupid bastard, I'll destroy you when I get out. Jay had managed one last message before they confiscated his phone. I quickly screenshotted it, more evidence for the restraining order, then blocked the number. Another buzz, this time from Victoria's phone. Please, I'm sorry. I was just following his lead. Please don't do this. I didn't respond. She had made her choice every time she walked into my house, sat at my table, and plotted my destruction. Sorry was just another word for being caught. I walked upstairs to my bedroom, the one I had already had professionally cleaned and redecorated. No trace of them remained. The sheets were new, the mattress replaced, and even the air smelled different, lavender instead of jasmine. In the mirror, I saw myself clearly for the first time in years. Not the mouse, not the victim, not the good wife, just Elena. I thought about the woman kneeling on the marble floor in the prologue, blood dripping from her palm, something dark awakening inside her. She had kept her promise. She destroyed them. But the real revenge wasn't the arrest, the public humiliation, or the financial ruin. The real revenge was that I had survived. They tried to break me, drive me insane, erase me entirely. Instead, they had forged me into something harder than diamond, sharper than glass. I lay down in my bed, in my house, living my life. Tomorrow, I would wake up free. I would enjoy coffee without sugar, without drugs, without fear. I would breathe air that didn't taste like betrayal. I would exist unapologetically. And somewhere in separate cells, they would awaken to the consequences of underestimating me. My husband had been right about one thing: change is never easy. Sometimes we must leave the past behind to embrace the future. I closed my eyes and smiled. The future had never looked brighter. 6 months later, I found myself in a courtroom, watching my husband's sentencing. Prison had not been kind to Jonathan Blackwood. His designer suits were replaced with an orange jumpsuit, his perfectly styled hair had thinned, and his swagger had crumbled into shoulders that hunched like a beaten dog. Yet his eyes still burned with hatred when they found mine. I sat in the front row, wearing the pearl necklace his mother had gifted me on our wedding day. The very one he had tried to have Victoria steal, but I had hidden it in my mother's apartment. Every detail of my appearance was meticulously calculated to remind him of what he had lost. "Does the defendant have anything to say before sentencing?" the judge asked. Jonathan stood, his lawyer studying him intently. "Your Honor, I was manipulated. My wife, she orchestrated this entire thing." "Mr. Blackwood," the judge interrupted, You've been found guilty of 37 counts of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. The evidence against you is overwhelming and entirely self-generated. Your attempts to portray yourself as a victim are insulting to this court and to the actual victims of your crimes." "She's not innocent," he shouted, pointing at me. "You destroyed your own life," the judge replied coldly. "Mrs. Blackwood's only crime was trusting you. 15 years. The gavel fell like thunder. 15 years. He would be in his 50s when he got out. His hair would be gray, his connections dead, and his fortune gone. The golden boy of the Blackwood Empire would become nothing more than a cautionary tale. As they escorted him away, he managed to break free for a moment, lunging toward me. "I'll kill you," he screamed. "When I get out, I'll kill you." The guards quickly wrestled him down, but I didn't flinch. I had already faced his worst. His threats were nothing but noise now. Victoria's trial had been quieter. She had taken a plea deal, testifying against Jonathan in exchange for a reduced sentence, 3 years with the possibility of parole in 18 months. She had sobbed through her entire testimony, claiming she had been coerced, manipulated, and threatened. Maybe some of it was true. Perhaps he had promised her the world only to slowly ensnare her in his web. But she had still chosen to help destroy me. She had still laughed while drugging my coffee. I attended every day of both trials, ensuring they saw me strong, unbroken, thriving. The media dubbed me the woman who fought back. There were book deals, movie offers, and interview requests. I turned them all down. My story wasn't for sale. My pain wasn't entertainment. Instead, I utilized Jaden Sr.'s connections to establish a foundation, the Phoenix Trust, for women who had been gaslit, abused, and financially destroyed by those who were supposed to love them. We provided legal aid, safe houses, and, most importantly, investigative services. Because the authorities don't always believe you when you claim your husband is poisoning you. They don't always care when you report financial abuse. Sometimes you need someone who understands that the person sharing your bed can be your worst enemy. The Foundation's first success story was Margaret, a doctor whose husband had been slowly poisoning her with mercury, all to inherit her practice. We caught him, exposed his treachery, and ultimately saved her life. The second was Jennifer, whose boyfriend had taken out life insurance policies in her name. We uncovered those policies, revealed his sinister plan, and even traced his previous victim, a girl who had died in a hiking accident 3 years earlier. Each woman we saved felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Jaden Sr. became my unlikely ally. He had completely disowned Jonathan and even funded my legal team. You're the only real Blackwood left, even if it's just by marriage. We shared dinner once a month, during which he taught me about business, power, and how to never be a victim again. In return, I offered him what Jonathan had never deserved: respect, attention, and eventually something resembling affection. One evening, as we sipped brandy, he said, "I've changed my will. Everything goes to the Foundation when I die." Jaden, Jonathan is dead to me. He has been since the day he allowed that woman to feed you poison in your own home. His hand, weathered yet steady, covered mine. You survived, my son. That makes you stronger than any blood relative I have. My mother moved into the pool house, claiming it was to help me, but I knew she worried. The strong facade I wore might crack. The darkness that had awakened within me threatened to consume what was left of my soul. Some nights, she was right to worry. Some nights, I stood in the kitchen where Victoria had kissed my husband, imagining hunting them down after their release. I envisioned making them suffer as they had made me suffer, imagining revenge so complete it would erase them from existence. But then morning would arrive, bringing with it a renewed sense of purpose. The Phoenix Trust flourished. We opened offices in 3 cities, saving dozens, then hundreds of women. Each victory felt like a small act of revenge, proof that I had transformed my pain into power. A year after the trial, I received a letter from Victoria. She was getting out early due to good behavior and overcrowding. She wanted to meet to apologize properly, to make amends. I burned the letter. Yet, she showed up at my door anyway. She looked different, smaller. Her designer clothes had been replaced with basics from discount stores. The perfect makeup was gone, revealing a face that appeared older than its 25 years. "Please," she said, "just 5 minutes." I could have slammed the door, called the police, or released the security footage of her crimes to obliterate any chance she had at rebuilding her life. Instead, I let her in. We sat in the living room where she had once plotted my destruction. She fidgeted, unable to meet my gaze. "I was 22 when I met him," she began, "fresh out of college, desperate to prove myself. He was everything I thought I wanted, powerful, confident, established." "I don't want your life story," I interrupted coldly. "I know. I need you to understand that I see it now. What I did was unforgivable. I helped him try to destroy you because I thought that's what love looked like, doing anything, becoming anyone to keep him." She pulled out an envelope. "This is everything I remember about his offshore accounts, the ones the FBI didn't find. I thought maybe the foundation could use the money." I took the envelope without touching her hand. Inside were account numbers, passwords, and detailed notes, millions hidden away for his eventual release. "Why?" I asked. "Because I was you once," she said. Before him, I had been engaged to a nice guy, someone with a normal job and a normal life. But Jonathan convinced me that I could do better, that I could be better. He isolated me from everyone, making me dependent on him and the life he promised. By the time I realized what I had become, it was far too late. "You had choices," I reminded her. "You chose to drug me." "I know, and I'll live with that forever." She stood to leave but paused. "He's planning something. I don't know what, but he has people on the outside. Be careful." After she left, I called Thomas. He confirmed her words. The accounts were indeed real, and there were whispers that Jonathan was orchestrating something from prison. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had faced the worst, the betrayal of someone I loved completely. Everything else was just noise. That night, I stood in my bedroom, gazing out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, women were being gaslit, manipulated, and destroyed by men who claimed to love them. Somewhere, another Elena was on her knees, picking up broken glass, feeling something dark awaken within her. I couldn't save them all, but I could save some, and that was revenge enough. 2 years had passed since the birthday party that changed everything. The Phoenix Trust had evolved into a national organization, helping over 300 women escape abusive situations. My story had become legend, whispered in support groups, shared in secret forums, passed between women like a promise that survival was possible. I thought I had won. I thought it was over. I was wrong. The first sign was subtle, a flower delivery to the foundation, white roses, no card. Then a reservation at my favorite restaurant was mysteriously canceled. My car tires were slashed while I was at my mother's house. "It's him," Thomas said, as he reviewed the security footage that somehow revealed nothing. "He's got reach even from inside. Jonathan has been a model prisoner. Good behavior, teaching finance classes to other inmates, finding God, or at least pretending to. His sentence was reduced. He'd be eligible for parole in 5 years instead of 18. "How?" I demanded at my lawyer's office. Miranda looked grim. "Money talks, even in prison, especially in prison. He's built a whole network now. Other white-collar criminals, guards, he's paying them off. There's even a fan club on the outside that believes he was framed." "A fan club?" I echoed, incredulously. She showed me the website, Free Jonathan Blackwood. Hundreds of members, mostly men who viewed him as a victim of a vindictive ex-wife. They'd raised money for his appeal, hired new lawyers, and crafted a narrative where I was the villain. They're doxing Phoenix Trust clients, Miranda continued, harassing women who speak publicly about their experiences. And Elena, they have your schedule, your routines, everything. That night, I installed new security systems, hired bodyguards, and changed my routes. But the harassment persisted. Dead animals were left at the foundation, threatening calls were made to my mother, and photos of me were taken from a distance, mailed to my house with chilling messages. He's coming. Jaden Sr. offered to handle it his way. Old money had old solutions, but I refused. I wouldn't become them. I wouldn't allow their evil to transform me into something equally dark. Then they targeted someone I couldn't protect. Rebecca was 19, a Phoenix Trust success story. Her ex-boyfriend had tried to kill her, but we had rescued her and gotten him arrested. She was rebuilding, healing, until she wasn't. They found her body in her apartment. Suicide, the police said, but the note wasn't in her handwriting. The security footage was corrupted, and her phone's last message was directed to me. "They're here. They say if you don't stop..." The message cut off abruptly. I stood at her funeral, watching her mother sob, and felt the darkness I had kept caged for 2 years howl for release. They had killed an innocent girl to send me a message. They had destroyed a life just to prove they could. That night, I made a decision. I called Jaden Sr. I need those old solutions now. He didn't ask questions. Within a week, 3 of Jonathan's most vocal supporters had their own secrets exposed. Affairs, tax fraud, and one with a predilection for underage girls. Their lives imploded spectacularly and publicly. The website went down after its founder was arrested for distribution of child pornography. Planted or real, I didn't ask. But Jonathan himself remained untouchable, in his cell, still pulling strings, still orchestrating terror. Victoria called me. She had been out for 6 months, working at a grocery store, keeping her head down. "He contacted me," she said, her voice trembling. "He wants me to help him, says if I don't, he'll have me killed." "What does he want?" "He wants me to get close to you again, gain your trust, then..." She hesitated. "He didn't say exactly what, but Elena, he's different now. Prison didn't break him, it made him worse. He's got connections with real criminals now, not just white-collar thieves." We met in a public place, surrounded by my security. She looked terrified, constantly checking over her shoulder. "There's more," she said. "He knows about Rebecca. He ordered it. He has a list of every woman the Phoenix Trust has helped. He'll kill them one by one until you publicly recant your testimony. Admit you framed him." That would never hold up legally. He doesn't care about the law anymore. He cares about destroying you. He said prison taught him that there are worse things than death. He wants you to live knowing you caused all those deaths. I stared at her. This woman who had helped destroy my life, now trying to save others? "What do you propose?" "We fight back together. I know his network, his codes, his plans. You have resources, connections. We can dismantle his operation from the outside while he rots inside." It was a deal with the devil, but sometimes you need evil to fight evil. We worked in secret for months. Victoria fed information to Thomas, who passed it along to federal agents who actually cared. We identified Jonathan's lieutenants, his funding sources, and his communication channels. One by one, we took them down. His money man was arrested for murder, a cold case from before he met Jonathan, solved with an anonymous tip. His inside prison contact overdosed on contraband drugs. A tragic accident, the warden said, as his message network was exposed when someone leaked the encryption keys to the FBI. But Jonathan himself survived every attempt to isolate him. He had too many backup plans, too many fail-safes. "There's only one way to end this," Victoria said one night as we reviewed our options. "Someone has to get close to him. Inside. Close. He'd never trust either of us. Not us. Someone new. Someone he doesn't know is connected to you." "I've dealt with men like him before," she said during our first meeting. "Narcissists with God complexes. They're predictable once you know their triggers." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Sophia would join his fan club, write him letters, and visit him in prison. She'd become his new obsession, his hope for the future. And through her, we would feed him false information, lead him into traps, and dismantle his network from within. "It's dangerous," I warned her. "He's killed before." "So have I," she replied simply, "just with legal sanction." The seduction took 3 months. Sophia played her part flawlessly, the wounded bird seeking a strong protector. She hung on his every word during visits, cried at his injustices, and promised to wait for him. Jonathan fell completely. His letters to her were horrifying, detailed plans of what he'd do to me and to everyone who'd wronged him, but also useful names, dates, locations, and evidence that even his expensive lawyers couldn't explain away. But the masterpiece was the recording. Sophia wore a wire during their final visit, capturing him bragging about Rebecca's murder, about the others he planned, about how he'd fooled everyone into thinking he'd reformed. "Elena thinks she won," he laughed on the tape, "but I'm going to take everything from her. Every woman she saves, I'll destroy. Every life she touches, I'll end. And when there's nothing left but her guilt and pain, then I'll come for her personally." "How?" Sophia asked, playing the devoted follower. "I've got people everywhere, guards, cops, even judges. When I get out, and I will get out, she'll never see me coming. I'll make her death look like a suicide, poetic justice for what she did to me." But what if she has protection? Everyone sleeps sometime. Everyone has a weakness. Hers is that she still has hope. She still believes in justice, in goodness. I'm going to teach her that only power matters, and I have more power than she can imagine. It was enough. The recording went to the FBI, the media, and even his own lawyers. New charges were filed: conspiracy to commit murder, witness intimidation, running a criminal enterprise from prison. His support network crumbled overnight. His fellow inmates, realizing he was now a liability, distanced themselves. His money dried up as assets were frozen. The trial was swift. Life without parole, solitary confinement, no contact with the outside world. I attended the sentencing, sitting in the same spot as before. This time, he didn't look at me. He couldn't. He knew he'd lost completely. As they led him away, he mumbled something. The guard later told me what he'd said. She was supposed to break, but I hadn't broken. I'd been forged into something unbreakable. Outside the courthouse, Victoria waited. "It's over," she said. "For him. What about you?" She looked at me. This woman who'd been my enemy, my destroyer, my unlikely ally. "I'm leaving, starting fresh, somewhere where nobody knows my name. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to atone for what I did. Running won't change the past. No, but maybe it'll give me a future." She paused. "What about you? What's next for the woman who brought down Jonathan Blackwood?" I thought about it. The Phoenix Trust was thriving. My mother was safe. The monster who'd haunted my nightmares was caged forever. "I'm going to live," I said simply. "Really live. Not just survive, not just fight, but actually live." She nodded and walked away. I never saw her again. Though sometimes donations arrived at the Phoenix Trust from anonymous sources, I knew it was her, trying to balance the scales. That night, I stood in my kitchen, the place where it all began, where I'd first uncovered evidence of his betrayal. The marble floor showed no trace of my blood, the champagne, or the shattered glass, but I remembered. I remembered the woman who'd knelt there, broken and bleeding, something dark awakening inside her. She'd kept her promise. She'd destroyed him completely. But more than that, she'd survived. She'd transformed. She'd saved others from the same fate. The darkness was still there. It would always be there, a sleeping dragon forged in the fires of betrayal. But it no longer controlled me. I controlled it, channeled it, and used it to protect instead of destroy. My phone buzzed. Another woman reaching out to the Phoenix Trust. Another story of abuse and gaslighting. Another life that needed saving. I answered it. "This is Elena. You're safe now. Tell me everything." The letter arrived on a Tuesday. I almost didn't open it. Prison mail still occasionally found its way to me, despite the no-contact order. But this one felt different. The handwriting was shaky, uncertain. The return address was the prison hospital. Inside, a single paragraph. "Elena, the doctors say I have weeks, maybe days. Pancreatic cancer spreading fast. I'm going to die in this cage, alone and forgotten. You won. But before I go, I need you to know I loved you once. Before the money, before Victoria, before I became a monster, I loved you. I destroyed that love with my own hands, and it's the only thing I truly regret. Jonathan." I read it 3 times, waiting to feel something. Vindication, pity, closure. But there was nothing. He was just a stranger who happened to share my history. I burned the letter and went to work. The Phoenix Trust had expanded internationally. We now had offices in 12 countries and had saved thousands of women. I testified before Congress about domestic abuse and had written legislation that was now law. My life held meaning beyond revenge. That afternoon, Thomas called. He died this morning, alone. The guards found him during morning count. Any last words? He asked for you. When they said no, he just closed his eyes and waited. I felt a flutter of something then, not sadness, not satisfaction, just completion. The story that had begun with my blood on the marble floor had finally reached its end. That evening, Jaden Sr. came for our monthly dinner. He was friar now, walking with a cane, but his mind remained sharp. "I heard about Jonathan," he said over soup. "Yes." "Feel anything?" "No." He smiled. "Good. He doesn't deserve your feelings, even in death." He paused, studying me. "You know, I hated you when he first brought you home, this middle-class girl who trapped my golden boy. I know I was wrong. You weren't the trap. You were the treasure he was too stupid to value." He raised his wine glass. "To Lena, the daughter I should have had." We drank in comfortable silence, 2 survivors of Jonathan Blackwood's destruction. Later, I walked through my house, truly mine now, with no ghosts left to haunt it. In my office hung photos from Phoenix Trust events, women who'd escaped, who'd survived, who'd thrived. Rebecca's picture held a place of honor. She'd been the last casualty of my war with Jonathan, but her death had led to legislation that protected abuse victims from retaliation. Rebecca's law had saved hundreds. My phone rang. A journalist was seeking a statement about Jonathan's death. "No comment," I replied, and hung up. He didn't deserve words, didn't deserve any space in the narrative of my life. He was merely a chapter that had been closed and forgotten. That night, I dreamed about the woman I used to be, the one who made omelets and believed in forever. He wasn't weak, I realized. She was hopeful. She'd loved completely, trusted fully. Jonathan had tried to kill that woman, but he'd failed. She lived on in every woman I helped, in every life I saved, in every moment I chose hope over bitterness. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I no longer kept shuttered. Outside, the world continued on, indifferent to the death of a man who'd thought himself a god. I made myself coffee, no sugar, never sugar, and sat at my kitchen counter, the same spot where I'd first discovered Victoria's phone, where everything had changed. My reflection in the window showed a woman I barely recognized from 5 years ago. Stronger, harder, but somehow softer as well. The edges had been worn smooth by purpose rather than pain. The doorbell rang. A delivery. White roses, but this time with a card. "Thank you for saving my life. A Phoenix Trust survivor." I arranged them in a vase, their beauty no longer tainted by association with him. This was my victory, not his destruction, but my construction. Not his death, but my life. The phone rang again. Another woman in crisis. Another story of betrayal and abuse. "Phoenix Trust, this is Alina. You're not alone." As I listened to her story, I thought about the title of my tale. My husband forced me to serve his mistress on his birthday. He regretted it 3 seconds later. 3 seconds. That was all it had taken for his world to start collapsing. Yet it had taken me years to rebuild mine, and now I finally was.